The 2023 freshman class might be the thing that terrifies me the most about the Florida Gators in 2024. We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We will also be available tonight after the Florida Gators SEC tournament game. We'll be going live after that, and hopefully won't be the last time we go live during this tournament. But happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33. This episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Nissan. If you're the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little bit further, and if you've ever wondered what adventure could be right around the next corner, take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. And like I said, the Florida Gators 2023 freshman class, it doesn't scare me. Like, they were a great class, but if they don't develop to the extent that we're hoping, going to be disappointed. And I don't mean to take the next huge steps that a lot of people do expect. I mean, if they just don't take those next steps towards development, like the whole selling point last year for the Florida Gators was youth, right? Going into the year and then throughout the year, like, we sat through the inconsistent games. We sat through the Utahs. We sat through the Kentuckys. We sat through Arkansas. And we went, all right. The thing that got us through it was that these young players from the class of 2022, really, and class of 2023 will take their next steps in 2024. Because so much of what we saw last year was, they're not experienced, and that was a big thing of like, why'd you make this mistake? And it could really be circled back to inexperience. You don't really have that this year. You still have youth, and you can say that, but you're experienced youth at this point, at least for a good deal of guys. Like, if they don't take that next step in 2024, like, that's one of my biggest, I guess, fears, we'll say, for the 2024 season is, if you don't take that next step, 2024 is going to be rough. Like, looking at just like the 2023 class and guys we expect to play probably pretty significant roles: Jakeem Jackson, Kelby Collins, Trey Wilson III, obviously, Dijon Johnson, maybe. I guess you could kind of switch him around with Jakeem Jackson, and one of them is probably going to play a pretty significant role this year. TJ Searcy, Sharif Denson, Treon Webb, Jaden Robinson, Andy Jean, Bryce Thornton, Aaron Gates, Najee Harris, Jordan Castell. It's a lot, right? Like, that's a lot of guys from the 2023 class that we're expecting to take jumps. And again, some Gators fans are going to go, oh, well, like, they're going to be all SEC now. They got freshman experience. Obviously, we don't do that here. We don't make that leap here. But then going back to 2022, you can look at the Shamar James, who pretty damn good, but Jamari Lyons, hopefully a bigger role. Devin Moore, hopefully healthy. Arliss Boardingham, hopefully a more consistent role. You look at Jack Pyburn maybe coming back healthy. Tony Livingston at tight end. He's going to be one of the first off the bench at tight end. You've got Hayden Hansen, obviously, starter, friend of the show, hopefully going to be a bigger pass catching threat, and hopefully, like Arliss, better blocker compared to what he was last year. But you look at all that and you go, if they don't take the next steps, this is going to be a really rough season, because so many of the guys I just named are expected to be starters or first guys off the bench, first guys into the game from the sideline. And so that's, for me, I think the biggest fear that I have. That's what I'm going to say. Biggest fear, not concern. I'm going to say the biggest fear that I have for this team is that they don't develop. is that they don't develop to the extent that the Florida Gators need them to develop in order to win more football games this year. And I say in order to win more football games because it's really not just about looking better. You need to win games because if you don't win those games, then guess what? We're probably talking about a new coaching staff. Whether you like Billy, hate Billy, whether you think he'll work out, think he won't, whether you just think he needs more time, whatever it may be. If you don't win games, probably talking about a new coaching staff, right? And then you're probably talking about all that youth that you were working on getting experience and oh yeah, he's a true freshman that played in 453 snaps, whatever it may be. Throw it out the window because kids don't stay committed to the schools when coaches leave anymore. That's just not how things work. Whether it went great and they got promoted and went elsewhere, or it went horrible and they got fired, kids don't stay anymore. So for me, that's one of the biggest fears is that if it doesn't work out, you're probably looking at a new coaching staff and all that development you just did or all those snaps that you just got are going to benefit another school. Especially when we look at the turnover on the coaching staff, specifically on the defensive side of the ball mostly, but turnover, you had one of your offensive line coaches leave, you brought in a new one. Your tight end coach is now your co-offensive coordinator. What if he doesn't have enough time to develop, which I'm not genuinely concerned about that, but I'm just saying like that's how the snowball, the spiral works on a lot of these things. But on defense, you look at all the guys that changed coaches. Edges is the only one that stayed the same, really. Will Harris is going to coach the entire secondary different. Ron Roberts is going to coach linebackers differently. Gerald Chapman's going to coach the defensive line differently. There was a lot of coaching staff turnover. And so maybe we look at that and we go, all right, well, with all the new coaching points, because Sean Spencer, Corey Raymond, they were kind of given the boot, right? Jay Bateman, we could say, I don't think he was a very good coach, but pretty good recruiter. But you look at all the changes there, and it's like, well, they weren't good enough to find success here. Odds are new coaches are going to have to really bring up new coaching points and kind of coach bad habits out of guys and all that fun stuff. And so maybe we don't see that jump for some. Then you also can talk about the obvious trade-off of maybe you see a bigger jump than expected for some guys. But again, you know how we do it on this show. When we talk about a lot of guys projecting to develop and projecting to improve considerably, history, statistics, my heart tells me that not all of those guys are going to take those steps. And so for me, I think I have to say that my biggest fear for the Florida Gators in 2024 is that the freshmen from 2023 and even the 2022 guys who redshirted in 2022 and are now or played in 2023, and then the 2023 guys, whether they played or redshirted, that big concern is that they don't take the next steps needed for the Florida Gators to win some more football games. Again, because probably means a new coaching staff, which again, I don't care how you feel about Billy Napier. When you say probably has a new coaching staff, it means you're probably losing a lot of the talent that coach brought in. And so when we have these conversations too of guys going, well, who cares if Billy Napier's here? He's just stacking the cupboard for the next guy. No, he's not. No, he's not. Because even without coaching turnover, we're seeing roster turnover at every school. That's not just a Florida thing. That's at every school. So it's really not as simple as, oh, he's stacking the cupboard for the next guy. That's not how things work anymore. We are about to talk about my next biggest, again, I guess we'll say fear here. But first, we're going to get a quick word from Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? You ever wonder what adventure could be right around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive, Google built-in, is your always updating assistant on call for really, really anything. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. And Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room for up to 8, which when we went to Mobile for the Senior Bowl about a month and a half ago, we got ourselves a Pathfinder because we had a lot of people. They're an expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. And the 2024 Nissan Armada, which I have not driven yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Maybe when I get to Gainesville in a few weeks, will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever this is the podcast and on YouTube. I don't know about you, but like this week is when I woke up and I was like, all right, allergies are just whooping me right now. It's wild. But I just got to let you know that one. Allergies kicking the literal snot out of me there. But my next biggest fear for the Florida Gators in 2024 is that the offensive line isn't better or isn't figured out, because I do strongly believe the offensive line in 2024 is going to be better than it was in 2023. And sure, you could say, well, can't get worse. We've said the same thing about the secondary of just like, well, and the defense in general. We've kind of sat there and go, well, you can't get worse, but also with the defense, I've said that for 2 years in a row now, and it's gotten worse. So they've been really impressive with that. It's almost like the defense has been bad enough where it's almost like they're trying to do that. But with the offensive line, they were pretty good in 2022. They were helped by having Anthony Richardson in the backfield. Their pressure numbers didn't look worse, by the way. I don't like people say that. Their sack numbers looked significantly improved because of Anthony Richardson, but like pressures still came in. Pressures is still the thing you look at with the offensive line there. We go, all right, like, yeah, they allowed a lot of pressures, whether or not it was sacks. A lot of that comes down to the quarterback there. But the pressures better than we saw in 2023, but pressures are still there in 2022. Anthony Richardson helped them make them look really good. And then the 2023 season came around and it was really bad. It was just horrible throughout, whether it was the healthy line together, the unhealthy line. It was just bad football throughout, right? And again, I strongly, firmly believe that in 2024, this offensive line is going to be better. I think having Austin Barber in his second year as a full-time starter helps. I think having Brandon Crenshaw Dixon coming over from San Diego State, Devin Manuel from Arkansas, Damian George moving to guard, Najee Harris stepping into a starting role, Jake Slaughter in year 2 as a starter at center is arguably more important and more impactful than having Austin Barber back for year 2 as a starter in this offense, because center dictates so much of what's going on with the line around him that I think it helps more. Where tackle, pass protection, you're kind of on an island, right? You drop into your pass set and every edge is trying to just run around you or get you wide and then cut in. And so as a tackle, you're kind of on an island in pass protection. Run block, you have to work as a unit. But as a center, everything that you do is involving other people, and everything that you do is voiced through other people, because that's your job as a center. You have to be the one dictating that. It's not like, we go, oh, the guard's the best guy, he's the one making the call. No, it's the center. The center has to be the brains of the offensive line. So for Jake Slaughter in year 2, I do think it's more important than Austin Barber in year 2 as starters. But there's still kind of a lot to figure out on this offensive line, right? And again, we know generally who's going to be starting and who's going to be the first rotational lineman there, which does help, because even if we go, oh, it's going to be Austin Barber, Brandon Crenshaw, Dixon with Devin Manuel as the first offensive tackle to come in. Maybe it's slightly different. Maybe it's Austin Barber and Devin Manuel with Brandon Crenshaw Dixon to be the one to rotate in, or whatever it may be. But there's all that possibility there of all these moving pieces that, for me, I look at this and I go, there's a lot of parts to figure out. You've got kind of 2 starting spots secure. And even one of them with Austin Barber, I'm not fully convinced he's definitely playing left tackle this year. I do think he'll play left tackle. I'm not fully convinced of it though. So even then, you go, all right, we know 2 of our starters for sure. It's a matter of who lines up where. And for me, like that could change, that could be a big deciding factor because some guys just they're quicker dropping back to their right in their pass set. They're quicker to their left, whatever it may be. And you have to be quick. Otherwise, these modern day edges that are like 240 pounds, they'll just run right past you. And that is not something that you want with a quarterback like Graham Mertz. But for me, I do think that a lot of it comes down to maybe the offensive line doesn't work out. Maybe Rob Sale doesn't have it anymore. Maybe Jonathan DeCuster doesn't help this. And again, he could easily. He could help improve this offensive line. It's not a hard thing to improve this offensive line from last year. But again, when it comes down to what are my biggest fears for this team, it's that. Because the offensive line dictates so much. Like you could say, oh, my biggest fear is Graham Mertz getting hurt. Could be. If you have a really good offensive line, odds are he's not going to get hurt, right? If you have a good offensive line, odds are running game will be better. Graham Mertz has the ball less opportunity to get hurt. But if your offensive line is as bad this year as it was last year, Graham Mertz is going to be hit a lot. There's just no other way, but he's going to be hit a lot. Unless he starts throwing the ball away quicker, unless he starts, I don't know, trying to scramble more, in which case he's probably still going to get hit because he didn't look super keen on sliding last year. So I think when we talk about that, all of it can be attributed to the offensive line. Montrell, Graham Mertz will be benefited or hurt by their offensive line. And so for me, it's about figuring out that offensive line. And again, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot where we go, all right, we've got 2 returning starters at their positions. We've got 1 returning starter, likely with Damian George moving to a new position. We've got a guy who is very impressive as a freshman, and Najee Harris stepping into a starting role, most likely. And then we've got the portal to address the other tackle spot. So we can feel pretty good about it. But again, my biggest fear is that projection does not work out there. And if that's what happens again, if we have to watch another year of bad offensive line play, we're probably going to be looking for a new coaching staff and a new offensive line coach for 2025, right? Or late 2024 even, right? We are about to wrap up today's show, moving to the defensive side of the ball. But first, a quick word from Amazon Fire TV. Amazon Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV even recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports with March Madness, the NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Just trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are indeed talking about this pass rush because, man, it was clearly a focal point this past offseason, right? Bringing in Joey Slackman was a huge help. Bringing in Ron Roberts is going to help your pass rush plan overall. Bringing in Gerald Chapman and replacing Sean Spencer really with Gerald Chapman was kind of a big point as well for improving this pass rush. Because you look at what Gerald Chapman did at Tulane, pretty good defensive line play, right? And they brought up a pass rush without blitzing a ton. You look at what Sean Spencer did at Florida, and there wasn't a lot of pass rush opportunities, right? Clearly a focal point this offseason By bringing in Gerald Chapman, you go, all right, you've generated pass rush with just 4 rushers. We're looking to do that in Gainesville, while also being able to say, hey, if we want to blitz, we blitz, whatever it may be. By bringing in Joey Slackman from Penn, who was a pretty damn good pass rusher at the Ivy Leagues, you go, all right, well, we're trying to improve this defensive line because we desperately need an improved performance here, just overall. And then you look at everybody that is all these young guys stepping in of TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, Cam James, Justice Boone coming back, Tyreek Sapp with another year. Cam Jackson returning at nose tackle is kind of the only one where I'm like, all right, well, we're not going to see much of an impact from Cam Jackson as a pass rusher, which again, I've said, if you can get me like 1 pressure a game on average from Cam Jackson, I'm happy. Genuinely. He's a nose tackle that is a pure nose tackle. He's there to 2 gap, stop the run, make some havoc against the run, right? Not going to do much as a pocket pusher. I just need you to get a little bit more from that. And so Caleb Banks with another year now, Caleb Banks is another one where when he transferred from Louisville to Florida, so many Florida Gators fans were like, oh, well, bum. Which he barely played. He had great efficiency numbers when he played for Louisville, but he barely played at Louisville. We can look at last year as his first year of meaningful snaps, and we can say that Caleb Banks is someone who, in year 2 as a actual player, should take a jump this year. Especially when you look at he's going to be coming off the bench. So when you look at his efficiency numbers at Louisville, again, he was very efficient as a pass rusher with the Cardinals when he rarely rotated in. This year, he's not going to be rarely rotating in, but he's going to have fresher legs more consistently, and maybe we see a more lively pass rush from him. So, and also, of course, you look at bringing in Pup Howard, having Manny Nunnery back, having Shamar James back, having Derek Wingo back, having Jaden Robinson back, having Miles Graham in there, having Aaron Childs in there. You look at everything that you did to bring in more talent. Like you brought, we'll say you brought in new blood to juice it up, right? To juice up the pass rush, whether you're talking about the coaching staff with Gerald Chapman, and again, Ron Roberts being the head coach of the defense, helping out Austin Armstrong. I do think that we're going to see more slot blitzes this year because we really didn't see that much last year from Austin Armstrong. We didn't see many safety blitzes from Austin Armstrong last year. 2 things that at Southern Miss helped him make his money. Like that's what helped get Austin Armstrong from Southern Miss to the University of Florida, was being that really aggressive defensive coordinator. And we saw big plays from it. But guess what? Last year, or from 2022, we saw big plays allowed by Austin Armstrong's defense in 2021 and 2022 at Southern Miss, with the bringing the safeties on blitzes, bringing slots on blitzes. 2023, he didn't bring safeties and slots too much. We still saw a lot of big plays. So if you're going to give up big plays, at least have it be because you're being really aggressive and trying to generate more pressure, trying to generate more havoc, trying to generate more turnovers, right? Like you brought in new blood on your defensive line, in your linebacker room, and on your coaching staff. If you can't figure out that pass rush, yikes. Like this pass rush needs to be better because, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, last year was either we're blitzing and maybe generating pressure, or if we're not blitzing, then it's like a flow chart, right? It's, did you blitz? Yes. Did you generate pressure? Maybe. Yes or no, right? Here it was, did you blitz? No. Did Princely Umanmielen rush? And you can bring it down again to be like, yes or no, because he did drop back quite a bit. And if you went to no, then it goes, did you generate pressure? No. Did you rush Princely Umanmielen? If it went to yes, it said, did Princely Umanmielen generate pressure? Yes, then yes, you generated pressure. Did Princely Umanmielen generate pressure? No, then no, you didn't generate pressure. It was really blitzing or Princely generating pressure. That was it. And even Princely benefited from the blitzes. So this year, you need to really change that up, because if you're looking at what you had last year. It was blitz or Princely or nothing. Here, it needs to be blitz or no blitz. We're generating pressure. And you need to figure it out this year because I have to say, I'm not confident enough in this secondary to go, whether or not you blitz, they're going to generate pressure. I'm just not. Or whether or not you get pressure, we're going to be able to get these stops. Like I'm not confident in doing that. Because, and I spoke about this on yesterday's show, Jason Marshall is someone that needs, he's the most important defender for me. You set the tone in the secondary. But if there's no pass rush, your secondary's cooked anyway, right? Like you would need one of the most elite secondaries in college football to be able to have a mediocre pass rush and still have a good pass defense. It would need to be elite. And the same can go for if you have a mediocre secondary. Like you would need an elite pass rush to have an even acceptable defense. Because that's how things work, right? Like they need to be married together. You need to go, we have a pass rush and coverage unit that work together. Like that's what they need to be married to. It's like you talk about with the under center wide zone and play action games, things like that. They need to be married together. And for Florida, they were married together in complete dog crap last year. That's what it was. It was a shotgun wedding. That they didn't love each other. They were constantly stepping out on one another. It was a train wreck, right? It was just horrible. If if you watch Love Is Blind, it's like Clay's parents' marriage, right? Like it was just bad. No one wanted it. It was terrible. Someone was always stepping out. They were only together for the kids. Things like that. Right? You can't have that with your defense. You need to be happily married together there. Good pass rush, good coverage unit, great defense. Great pass rush, bad cover unit, bad defense. Great coverage unit, bad pass rush, bad defense. They need to be married together and they both need to be at least good. I don't need them both to be elite. They both need to be at least good. And here's the thing, last year, neither of them were. That's not going to win you football games. That's not going to keep your job. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews of the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants, Country, and NFL 33, and I will see you all next time.